Wolfgang, nice
Hello.
to meet you again for this podcast episode recording. Yesterday, I introduced that we will be recording this podcast about face reading, and I asked some people to ask some questions about face reading that they would like to know on Instagram. And one of the comments was something that I often hear, that face reading, it's not a science and it's card reading and so on, esoteric, maybe just something like that. And I know that you're coming from very interesting professional background and how you moved into face reading consulting businesses. And maybe you can shortly introduce and tell how you got there into face reading from your background.
I mean, I had a time in my life where I was questioning everything. Everything, everybody, even myself, doubting everything. So as I went into business, I studied economics, I went into the startup scene, I went into the financial service sector. I was suddenly in a leadership position. I was building a team. I was recruiting. I was building people up. I was doing sales. I was teaching sales. So at one point I realized, okay, I need to are. So it started off with very simple personality tests. Like most people know this red, blue,
This
green, yellow color. Exactly. Yeah. So I was starting with that and I was applying it, but obviously had some limitations. And so I got into the 16 personalities, which is like 4 times the 4 colors. There is so, and I was also messing with that. And okay, so not at some point in a very, very uncommon leadership program, someone was telling me about there is this topic of face reading. And there is someone who is using that in business, in the highest of levels of business. And he reads and helps very successful people. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I want to know. Because he is applying it on a high level, there was already this kind of proof of work for me. And so I was starting to read books about it. And by kind of accident in this leadership program, we even got the guy and he can arrange a reading for you. And in this reading, he told me things about myself which gave me those realizations immediately, because I was always trying very hard to be successful, but there was some barriers. There was some things that I knew I had the knowledge to overcome them, but somehow there was always, it's like walking in deep mud, and it was very exhausting. And so he told me some core elements of my personality, which clicked with me and say, okay, I'm suppressing those. I'm not living those. I'm trying to be someone else. And so it changed my life. And at some point, I not only changed my way of doing the business, doing the leadership and everything, but I also got very much interested in learning what he just did, because I was also building people in my team. And I knew if I know what he just told me, I could help them. Yeah? I could help them get better, more successful, overcome their challenges. And so he took me on as an apprentice, so to say, and to address the question of it being not scientific, and you cannot really do scientific research on human beings, because there is those double blind studies where you have two sample sizes or two human beings, and then you can test if it's working again. You cannot do that with human beings because nobody is the same. So if we do something and check something out for me, we cannot double check with you, for example, because there is, even in twins, there is nuances of differences already.
I'm
But there is an inner logic, and then you can go with cross sciences, you can derive the inner logic, what we can just read here. And I'm very much a fan of being very pragmatic and being able to explain what the inner logic is.
So let's say, speaking about the twins, what I have recently actually met in BNI twin, they were identical twins. But of course, when you're looking at them, they seem like exactly the same. If you would see separately, you would not probably that easily recognize who is who or which is which. But whenever you're looking at them, they are obviously still having some kind of differences in face features. Something is different. So is it something that is making people different? So what are these nuances that are making people different from each other? What is it that is making everybody so different in character?
So we can go back in a logic. And it starts already when the life of a human being starts with one cell. There is already this structure that is set up where we say the endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph, which means endomorph is everything that is in your intestines, and then you have the mesomorph, which is the moving apparatus, the ligaments, the muscles, the bones, and then you have the ectomorph, which is the nervous system, every brain, the nerves, and it's like how we feel. So you have those three things, and when the first cell is there, there is already a predetermined relative separation of each of those three parts. So this is not something you can change by how you live. And now there is obviously other things as well, like hormones, like how the neuroplasticity
Mhm.
is responsible for the shaping of what is outside, obviously. And from that, you can derive certain things. And the genotype is expressing itself in the phenotype, like in the appearance. The form always follows the function. That is true in nature for everything. Plants, animals, like the fast running dog has a certain look, like the bulldog has a certain, and they have different functions. And for every biological impulse you have, there is also a psychological impulse that derives from that. So one does not go without the other. And there is no coincidences. In the universe, in nature, there is no coincidences. Everything follows a logic, everything follows a pattern. And that's how the genetics translate into character, translate into personality.
Interesting. All right, let's try it in practice. So when we were preparing, I said I can be the rabbit. So knowing me, seeing me, how would you describe me from my facial features? How would you read my face?
Let's just start with this very simple concept of ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. The endomorph is like the nurturing, natural. Like you have you need a lot of energy for everything that you do, and therefore you're a very economic in personality. You're economic in thinking. That I can see in the upper part. Also, the endomorph natural has like a triangle, trapeze shaped forehead, which is economic thinking. You're also, in terms of acting, the actions you take, you're also very economical. You always do like a cost benefit analysis for everything. You figure, okay, does it make sense? Fit? What's the costs? And then you act upon that. But you also have the ectomorph natural in yourself, and especially in the middle of your face, where the middle of the face is connected to the emotional center of your brain, to where the feelings are made. So, and one can see that by looking at your eyes. You have very, very big eyes. So big eyes is you take in a lot of information. That's the one thing. And you can also test, like, when you're looking on the horizon far away,
Mhm.
imagine yourself doing that. So what are you doing? And also the viewer can try that. imagine yourself looking like kilometers away into the horizon. Do that. And then you're focusing. Now you're in your
Okay.
imagination. You're looking up, you're in your imagination, your memories. Just imagine that the horizon is in the room and you're looking very far and try to focus something on the horizon. Then your eyes get a little bit smaller. See, you're trying very hard.
This is interesting.
And so what does it mean? Small eyes, they are focusing a target in the distance on the outside. Big eyes, as you have it, I have it as well. We are looking on the inside. What are we feeling? What is going on there? That's why you had a very hard time at first because that's not your normal thing. But if we would be outside, it would be easier. But you're very much in your imagination. See what else we have. Can you show me your ears as well?
The ears and the earrings.
So the ears determine how our soul, how we live out our soul, how sensitive our soul is in our lives. The smaller the ears, the more sensitive we are. The bigger, the larger the ears, the more calm we are. So you maybe know these elderly people that they have very big ears and they are very. Who else has big ears in the animal kingdom?
Elephants.
Elephants, exactly. They don't stress about too much. Only if the young calves they are threatened. Yeah. So, but there is another animal that has very small ears in the animal kingdom. It's very, very on the edge always.
On the edge. Small ears. Now I'm thinking which one.
It's
But
a hippo.
Hippo. Okay.
The hippo.
Hippos.
They like boats from afar. They see a boat. They see a boat 500 meters and they come rushing in and for nothing. So they're very sensitive in their impulsive emotions. They cannot be controlled. Put a hippo in a circus. Elephant, but the hippo would tear down the circus. They have very small ears compared to their size of their head. So your ears are. Can you show it again? They are like medium to big. So you have your calm. Yeah. So you have the economic thinking. You have the economic actions. You can be calm in a stressful setting. But of course, you're very empathic because your eyes, so the middle part of your face shows there is the sensitive part, the feeling part. So you're not cold-hearted, but you can stay calm, but still be empathic towards people, towards their situation. You have a good intuition. The small nose is kind of small, which is like the nose of the psychologist, we say. Small nose has instincts, has the intuition. And on the other side, the big nose is the mind-driven nose.
Okay. A long nose is for what Pinocchio, lying, for example, right? The tip of a nose that is smaller or something like some shape that people are curious people, that they will be looking into details, detail oriented, something like that. And also yesterday I have received a question that, for example, about, is it true that people who have big lips, they are speaking a lot, talking a lot?
So some of those things that we find in folklore or in comics, there is a truth to that, but there is also some things that are not true at all. The pointy nose is a nose. So there is one thing I have to say. There is never one feature that says something on its own. You always have to connect it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a context. You cannot just say tip of the nose is like this and the person is like this. That does not work. That's could be right, could be wrong. But there is in comics like the very trustworthy elderly person. The grandma has a big nose. and this is also connected with the stomach and where we digest our food. And if we eat a lot, it gets widened, and then also the nose gets widened. That's why if you drink too much alcohol, it gets red because it's the stomach, the tissue in the
Incredible.
stomach gets irritated, and so you can see that here.
Wow.
If
Okay.
you think of Gerard Depardieu, the actor, he's this big nose. Yeah, very much. He likes the food. They are enjoyers of life, all kinds of material enjoyment, and so the psychological component to that is these are people they need to be in company, enjoying the nice things in life. This is not something you do alone. This is always something in community. So this is the endomorph. With the nose would be counted towards the endomorph type. It's someone who needs this community, needs the togetherness and also the exchange. And therefore, this happens in things that we do together. And eating is one of those core things. So subconsciously, we trust people with a big nose tip more easily. In sales or in certain types of sales, it would be good to have that. I don't have that.
Is it people spend money more?
No, we trust that there is the truth in the comic. The elderly person, loving person, it's not like a edgy and like rough shapes. It's always soft. You also have that. Maybe your nose could be bigger in terms of the comic equivalent, but you're also like a trustworthy person. We all have that reading faces, profiling people in us. We just sometimes have to trust it more. But there
It's
is no
interesting.
long nose. Long nose is a liar. That's not a thing. That's it's the Pinocchio thing doesn't have to do with any of our inner logical things. And the strict witch, what does she have? She has like a nose that's very pointy, goes even down, and there is also truth to that.
You mentioned that when people are, for example, consuming alcohol, or it could be food, and it's like gaining weight or some substances or something, and we can see it on facial features, right? Also, what is happening that we have a lot of access to fillers for augmentation and increasing the beauty. Let's say if a woman is using, I don't know, Botox or fillers to make lips fuller or bigger, fuller, and using various things, for example, permanent makeup to change shape of eyebrow, shape of lips, and so on. How is that affecting personality-wise, if it is affecting?
So, just the eyebrows, that's not going to work. That's not a feature that's high in hierarchy. So there's that. There is features that are more important that can have a big saying in what the final answer is. The eyebrows are not one of them. They are always have to be looked at in context. That's the one thing. Then you said some things about eyebrows that I don't want to debate now if that's true or not. There is so much on TikTok and Instagram, like unsophisticated knowledge about reading, profiling people. So we don't go there. But let's say someone changes their eyebrow. One question is that I ask myself as a profiler is like, what is the person missing that they want to have that they don't have? So they're changing something is always an expression of I'm don't what I have. Would rather have something else. So there is also that. So I can see like the flips, for example. They are deemed as standard of beauty for women in certain cultures. Where does it come from? Maybe it's because full lips we perceive as sensitive, as creative, and there is more emotional, more sensitive communication in full lips than in more narrow, small lips. But there is also other information there as well. Okay, I would perceived as a sensitive person. Then there is the other thing. Does it change personality? No, it does not just change your personality because you're making more steep eyebrows. But what does it change? It does change how you are perceived. So it could, from the outside, if I perceive you as like, try to get aggressive, you get, I do this, more friendly. So, okay, you would, you, different way if I had eyebrows like this, you would maybe not open up so easily to me, towards me, but you see, okay, this is a person that is on the get-go. Like in comics, you also have the eyes like this for heroes. So it's the self-starter eyes, the hero eyes, someone who has intrinsic motivation. So let's put it like this. And the eyebrows also are in that department as well. So we can see for you some intrinsic motivation. You can also see it with your eyes on your left side more so than on the right side. Also has a meaning, obviously. So just by perceiving you in a different way and acting towards you in a different way can change how you are also acting over time. And it will. So there is no changing system that does not bring other changes as well. The thing is, at your core, you will not change. It is just like on the surface.
I think it's also what people are now starting to talk about, the beauty procedures like Botox, for example, that it is having not only the effect, for example, on brain, somehow it disconnects and so on, but also how is it affecting also our children, because of course more women are doing that, those procedures, right? But how it is also affecting children of women who are doing that, because children, they are used to reading mimics and facial features and recognizing the emotions and learning them since they are born from their mothers. But when mother's face is I don't know, inactive or something, it is much harder to read the emotions of a mother. So that's also the effect of being affectionate towards your children, emotional, right? How we are showing, and as well changing one face feature to, I don't know, reduce wrinkles. It is changing the other spheres as well. So
So for one, it's nerve poison. There's that. I don't know how it affects unborn child or if you have something like that. I don't know about that. I'm not an expert, but obviously if you put it in your body, it affects you at some level. I don't know how, if it goes into the brain and whatnot, but what it does, and this is the thing that you briefly mentioned, is for us to register emotions of other people, our mirror neurons. If we do a workshop about emotions, about facial gestures, like how is it happiness, is it anger, is it curiosity, what it is. If I give a picture of some expression, for you to figure out what the expression means, the easiest way is to just imitate it and see what it does to you. Like if you imitate like this, what I do here, just do it, and then you know what the thing that I just did is. And with the Botox, you cannot do that. And that's where connection also happens. If we can imitate what the other person does. So it's a kind of communication on a very deep level.
I have recently seen some interview with one of the producers in Hollywood who was sharing it is very difficult to find actresses nowadays who have this natural face because of the facial features for the roles. It's very interesting how we are changing things. It's about the industry dictating some trends and what they are saying that this is this or that, some beauty standards, but the same how it is also affecting the community and the person for self-acceptance, self-love, I would say, right?
Mhm.
With these procedures, it's whenever somebody is not accepting herself or himself, it's also directed towards how you are not only want others to perceive you, but how you accept yourself.
That's a very good assessment. Yeah, I mean, it's not like rocket science. If I'm not happy with who I am and I need to change things, and there is also levels to that. Obviously, there is maybe a little thing like changing a haircut, and there is like starting to changing everything up until you're not even the same again. That's a good interpretation of I want to be someone. The thing is, you will not find that happiness that you are seeking by doing that. If it's too deep, it gets very extreme. And you said something about the standard of beauty before, like doing the lips, and it's to be more beautiful. In whose eyes is that true? Because just because were people not beautiful 50 years ago?
If we have a look at the photos of our parents and grandparents, the differences of the standards are so much different. And when you look at certain years, you could see the fashion, the trends, even in hairstyles, you know. So people would experiment, and something that was seeming like normal at that time. Sometimes fashion is coming around in circles, but it's also not everything is coming back, right? Some things we take, some things we don't. Even with the same eyebrows, there were like 80s or 90s when it was like very thin eyebrows where like threads. Now it looks like very strange, right? When you remember some actresses also, and now they're coming also to the more natural looks, more different standards. Even I like the example of Pamela Anderson. I think everyone knows her. She used to be the symbol of the beauty and the classic beauty. How she is positioning herself, even going on the red carpet without the makeup, or at least with minimal makeup and very natural beauty. And she is also then talking about gardening and stuff. So it is very interesting because how you perceive personality from by the looks, by some visual representation, as well as how the person presents themselves. And it can shift so much, right? When recruiting a good salesperson, what facial features should we look at?
So, what makes a good salesperson? When I come into touch with a company, like with the HR department, and they tell me something like that, the first question is, what are you looking for? What what makes a good salesperson? Like on Tinder, you have matchmaking. There is one part, and then there is the other part. And in recruiting, we have that as well. We have like a job description, empathy, communicative, self-driven, whatever it is. So we have certain features that we are looking for, and then I can say start the matchmaking. But there has to be a certain uh, a list of things, because I don't know what. Also, there is not one sales type of sales. There is, say, like someone is selling to a port with ships, and their sales cycles are 5 years long, and there is only so many clients. So that there is, and then there is some B2C sales, which is like
Cold calling.
so of personalities, obviously, and also there is not one answer to that. There is things that work better than others, but at first we need to to find out, okay, what do you even look for in a salesperson?
Okay, let's hypothetically do the role play. So, for example, somebody is looking for a person who would do cold calling and also not only network, but close the sales, right? Because sometimes what I also see in recruitment that some clients are saying, we only need someone who can do cold calling 100 calls per day and that's it. But some clients are saying we need someone who could be doing the cold calling and also this.
Let's unwrap this. There always there you get the Wolfgang answer. The Wolfgang answer is always very differentiated. There we always have to differentiate. So you, and that's also what HR or leaders do a lot of times. And no, it's not a bad thing. Yeah, they just are not experts in this field, and that's why I come in and help them to understand. Oh, okay, that's how we can look at it. I'm not trying to take their jobs. I really don't want. I love my freedom. I don't want the job. So as an advisor, I asked, okay, let's go a level deeper. Cold call, getting in touch with clients. So what does that mean? Needs to be able to build trust, needs to be able to communicate. So we're not talking about what they're supposed to do, but what they need to do what they're supposed to do. Let's say they are in sales, you need to have your be self-driven. You have to have your kind of desire, and you are not an overthinker. You need to the action element in your personality needs to overshadow the thinking element. If you're thinking more than you act, that's not going to work. Maybe what kind of thinking do? Oh, they need a pragmatic thinking. They need to think in opportunities, in what's in front of them. Okay. So let's start with the trust. For a salesperson, and there is other ways as well, but for a salesperson, it's very good to have like a more round and big nose because it builds trust. For a salesperson and in general for business people who interact with other people and it's about trust is have a very harmonious face. If there is disbalances, like there is no symmetry, subconsciously disconnects us and it's like, it's not, I have a harder time to be trustworthy because what that is, left and right, is connected with the cross, with the brain in the like left with the right, right with the left. And so if it's not symmetrical, there is a disbalance. There is inner conflict. And inner conflict is always a bad thing to have in business because at some point the inner conflict might get into the way whatever we are doing here. So, but that could also be health-wise. If there is different colors in the face, someone is not looking healthy. That's also not good for sales because we don't trust someone who is out of control with themselves. If you're not centered, harder to trust you. And there is also being nervous. Like I'm also very much a sensitive person. I was always touching my face because something was going on in me. So I had to figure out these things. Now I'm not doing it anymore. So could also be very uncontrolled, looking with the eyes, nervous, all those things. We don't want to have them as much as possible. With the big round nose, everything round is good. Everything harmonious, soft, that's a good thing. That's the endomorph. The end is a very good type for sales because it's like, let's come together. They even like that. They get fulfillment out of being with other people. But you also want to have the mesomorph type, which is in the moving apparatus, in the muscles, in the ligaments, in the because what is the psychological equivalent to this? Someone who is moving wants to reach a goal psychologically. They also want to reach a goal in their mind. So it's not just running for the tree, but also for the sales target. So That what is in the endomorph, in the mesomorph natural, you have a chin that is coming forward. This lower part of our face is the action based. The jaw, you try to lift heavy weight without using your jaw. It's not working. Try to, in business, people sometimes get jaw muscles because they're grinding through. But if you have that naturally, that's already good. We need that. And if the lower forehead is like is very dominant, you see that in fighters oftentimes, like in boxers, because what's that? That's the prefrontal cortex. And the lower part of the prefrontal cortex is there for checking out my surroundings. And oh, what can I do with that? What's going on here? Opportunity thinking. Children, when they are born, they don't have that. They just have the middle part or the upper part. So it's more like this. And because they don't need to figure out their surroundings. That's coming later. At first, they're just hungry. I have this. They are just crying. They cannot say, "There's pizza. Let's get it." They don't have that. And so you want to have like somewhat of a dominant lower forehead. You want to have big ears, would be good. The nose is also very central in our personality. It's not just central in our face, but the bigger nose is the nose of the individualist.
Okay.
The smaller nose, like you have it, it's more like the collectivist. So now you have to nuance it. What kind of sales is it even? For B2C, maybe some towards the smaller is better, but maybe if it's like more of a like a challenger sale where it's about power dynamics on the table, obviously you want to have someone who has this inner desire to be represented in the center of the happening. You don't have as much. If you're a smaller nose, also like on the middle, there is like the big nose is, and also extremes. Extremes are always kind of edgy. So if something is extreme for sales or for anything, there is a challenge in that as well. Maybe not too much empathy. So if I'm talking to the HR director, empathy. And then I ask, how much empathy are they supposed to have to not break the sale? Because they're just, oh, he says no, and I want to appreciate the no as well. It's not going to work. All right. So you have to figure out what do you want? What do you even need in the person? There is no black and white. What do you don't want to have? That's also interesting. And then you start to make a picture. So there is not the perfect salesperson, but there is things that are enabling sales more, and then there is things that are disabling more.
You mentioned Tinder, and I had the question about, is it possible to determine that somebody is a good match by facial features, for example? Online shopping, it's people going, I like it, I don't like it, right? If I would go to shop for a dress online, it would be, I like it, I don't like it. It's red, it's not red. What do you think about this? Because it's basically selecting the partner or potential partner by only the outlook, right?
So we can do a whole podcast on that topic, but this does not necessarily has to do with face reading. And people come up to me and say, is this person the right one? Sometimes with my clients, they can just send me pictures of people they interact with and tell me something about them in their own company, in recruiting, in deal making, in networking, whatever it is. So they send me pictures. And sometimes it's men are doing that for the most part, women are not doing that. Um, they send me like pictures of women and maybe 2 or 3 back to back. What is this about? This is not about business, right? And so if you want to go into the coaching part of what we can do with face reading and what I do, then I would go on a different level. If you're doing dating on this analytical level, I don't know what you're looking for, but love is not happening there. Love is a subconscious thing. It's not a logical thing, like having lists of what my partner. But what actually works on Tinder, if you're intuitive person, you will swipe left, right by intuition. What do I like? What do I don't like? That depends also on what you're looking for. To go a level deeper in face reading, if someone asks for relationship advice, which can also be looked towards in an authentic way. Who are you? What does even make sense? What kind of type of relationship? How could it look? Because you have certain personality traits. There is things that would work and things that would be challenging or would not work. So if you are centered in your professional life, most of people tend to look um, for something harmonious, for someone that fits well, uh, where there is similarities a lot. So we could profile like that. Are you a good match? Then because in dating, they say similarities is what's working, and the other people say no, it's contradictions that's working. And both are true. And when is the contradiction part true is when you are not centered in your professional life, when you're not fulfilled in what you do, how you express yourself with your talents, with your personality in self-actualization. So if you're not fulfilled there, you're looking for contradictions in personality types.
Okay.
Because we need drama in our life. And drama is not something negative. Drama is something is happening. And if in my professional public life, nothing is going for myself in terms of fulfillment, so there is no drama for me. It's boring job. I'm doing something that I don't have talents for. Then I need the stimulant, the drama somewhere else. And that's where people find the person that is very different to themselves. And you can also look at it from this angle. Do you want to learn something in your relationship, or do you want to have a harmonious relationship? Because with someone who is challenging your personality by being different, you will learn. The question is to what extent and there is also personalities that don't work, like two people who are very big authorities in themselves. Maybe they can figure something out, but there is only one leader. So
Mhm.
you have different types, and it always comes down to who you are and which phase of life are you right now.
So basically, if you have similarity with the other part, it will be more harmonious, right? Like sometimes people are saying, and I also observed that I have some friends who look more like siblings. They look similar, and even it's seeing in the long run that the longer that they are, the more similar they become, right?
Of course, there will be like the built character.
Hmm.
There things can change, but you are not changing if you are the endomorph, the ectomorph, or the mesomorph type. That's not going to change. That's not going to happen. You can change, like for example, if I'm more of a need more freedom, and then I settle down with a family, the features that are saying, hey, this person needs a lot of freedom could get less a little bit. Those are things that can meet somewhere in the middle. There is the eyes, the mouth, everything that can change quite fast. Like ears can be more apart or more towards the
Mm-hmm.
head. Cheekbones can change by certain things quite fast as well because of the the muscles and everything. The bones need a little bit more time, but they also can change, but it takes very long. So there is that. If we look for someone that is like us, there would be certain things that match. Maybe there is also some merit to have some to accomplish each other.
Complete each
But
other. Mm-hmm.
if the mismatch is too much, I'm not an expert on that. Maybe 60-70% is the same and the other 30% you complete each other would be a thing.
That's very interesting. I think women who have been listening up to now about the freedom, importance of the freedom in the face.
Freedom, you mean autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one answer for it. You need to have the context.
Mm-hmm.
You have I have to give the Wolfgang answer again. Differentiate freedom in
Okay.
thinking, freedom in acting, freedom coming from a soul level. What kind of freedom are we talking? That's the first question I would have to ask. If someone needs freedom of thinking, for example, so we talked about the prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very high forehead, and the upper forehead is also
Mm-hmm.
expressed well. There is the reflecting, there is the idealistic thinking up there. Pragmatic thinking down, we need that for the salespeople. Reflective thinking, realistic thinking, and idealism needs freedom because I have my ideals. So they cannot be challenged. If they are broke, if their ideals are broken, someone will not be feeling very well. Obviously, there has to be challenge as well. You need to be the thinker. So there is that. But maybe someone doesn't have the freedom in the action, in the action parts. Like chin is forward, try to be aggressive with your chin back. That's not working. You you do like this when you're challenging someone. So if the chin is coming forward more than the mouth, then person needs freedom in their actions. If the jaw is strong, I need freedom or I just take it. Yeah, I don't care. So you have different parts. There is 7 parts that we connect, seven fields in the face and on the head, and you could have freedom in different ways.
When people are going through life challenges, we sometimes see that people, they look older, not only tired, but they look older. Something is changing in face asymmetry, right? And I have also noticed on myself when I was going through divorce stuff, it was like really taking quite a long time and it was a lot of stress. I noticed myself, and then I also went to a lot of different face massages and body massage to help to release the tensions. The asymmetry comes when we are stressed. We tend to have this fight or flight mode. Our body is changing, right? And the muscle is pulling the other muscle, and it's like everything is so connected in our bodies. So when something is happening, when we are stressed, especially if it is a long-term stress, then it is affecting the whole body, but we can also see it on the face. Is it something that works like that? And can we make it reverse?
Works. Most of the so it comes from the root. It comes from the
Mm-hmm.
inside. You can do face massages and you can activate muscles that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can also work from the outside towards the inside. But that's the long process because if the root doesn't change, maybe it's not even possible to change from the outside, or it will be always work. I have this picture that I use for that. You have a field of flowers or vegetables, and it needs to be watered. The well is here and the field is here. So you start to dig something that the water can come to the field. That's working on the outside. That's like telling yourself, I'm strong, I am strong, or
I'm called.
trying to massage your eyebrows upwards.
Mhm.
People even shape their faces by hitting the cheekbones. There is so okay. This from the outside, huh? And from the inside would be, why don't I make the well come out of the field? Okay, maybe that's not possible. I put the field on the well as well, but if the well is in the wrong location, just bring it back to where it's supposed to be. And because for the digging, you always have to dig. And the rain comes, the wind falls into the water. So it's always work. But changing from the root is the thing that works. And if we change from the inside, our faces change as well.
I joined a group by Jim Curtis. I don't know if you have heard of his hypnotherapy. He has written a few books and he had a group. So whenever I would join those live meetings, we would have some conversations, some topics, and then we would have meditation and hypnotherapy. And in between those meetings, we would have some recordings where you could pick the one that resonates the most with you using the app, and then you are listening. And then I would notice that, especially if it would be happening in the evening, or one thing is to do meditation in the morning or listening to the recording, the other thing in the evening, it is also visible, right? And after joining that session or those live sessions, especially live sessions, or when listening to the meditation or doing some similar practices for it, you feel rested, but with the same eyes are shining again. It's giving some peace, some resilience, some stability. Even our friend Sebastian, who has introduced us, right? He was also saying building your inner resilience is the cornerstone to the change that you're adjusting to the outside forces, because every day we will be dealing with something from the outside, either when we are at work working for someone or we have our own business. It's not only the flowers and the blossoms, right? But it's also sometimes about the rain, about the things that are happening and the struggles that we deal with. So keeping this inner core, it's really very important.
And what like reading is all about, when you figure out who you are at your core. There is no better resilience to be rooted in who you are. Playing a role or acting on a role, you're always trying to keep the house together. And the further you are away from who you are at your core, the more exhausting it is, the more you see the energy going out. So you can do something with meditation for the moment, yeah, of course. But if not going back to the well, you will always have to meditate a lot. Why not just come back to your core, who you are? And people's faces change when they do that.
It is important because a lot of people, they sometimes go with the flow with a profession, and knowing yourself truly to the core, it is really essential.
Wanting to live an authentic life, which means the thing that I'm inside, I live it out on the outside, is a conscious decision. You can consciously decide to go that route, or you can take the crossroads in the other direction and say, no, both is possible. The farther you are away from the ideal path, let's put it like that, maybe A is ideal. You
Hmm.
can go B and C, maybe even. But if you go D, E, F, then the midlife crisis will hit you at some point. The depression, the relationship breaks apart, you lose your job. So crisis appears to tell you something. So crisis is not a bad thing; it's a educational thing. And the longer we are not listening, the deeper the crisis will get. So you can do either way, but at some point you might pay price. There is no must in knowing yourself, but it would help.
Or we are on the journey to find out our purpose and mission in life, and knowing oneself really helps. So, Wolfgang, I want to thank you so much for sharing and being here today. We will leave in the description of this podcast your contact, so those who have been watching and want to find out more and reach out to you, they can do that. And uh, thank you so much for sharing and doing what you're doing so well, helping people find their why, helping companies also find their right team and methods, and going that deep into all of this face reading as a tool.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the questions. Enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.